Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about, I did a video a couple of days ago about accepting executive jobs in a woke sort of situation, and how, getting sort of interviewed, even if you're tapped on the shoulder and so on, having to go through a humiliating recruitment or hiring or vetting process if you're a straight white male, a process that no other group has to go through. And it's inverse to the reality. Like, the higher or the greater your achievements, the more brutal, really, and the more prejudicial will be the scrutiny of your past. Whereas a so-called minority group individual is subject to none of that scrutiny. The minute that anyone sticks their head up above the parapet and says, I'm a high achiever, look at my credentials, then the attitude appears to be, let's bring this person down, let's crush them, let's squash them. Whereas if you say, look, I'm a black homosexual, I know nothing. The only skill I have is how to hate white people and complain about being a victim. Buddy, you've got the job. That it's quite inverse. So the higher the achiever, the more credentialed the person, the less likely that they'll be considered ideologically acceptable. So I just wanted to talk a little bit more about that, and I've even had some people sort of send me messages directly about that last video. So I thought I'd do another one. This is couched really about my own experience, and this is going back, well, I don't know, 15 years or so, I suppose, where the wokery was nowhere near as insane as it is now, but it certainly was. I noticed it around the United States. These quotas and that sort of thing, race gender quotas, were being enforced, particularly if you wanted to get any sort of government contract. Now, the proportion of business in the Western world which is done through government contracts, and this could be things ranging from just basic procurement to paying for infrastructure and public works, and all sorts of things like that. Proportion of that, and then on top of that, proportion of the private sector, which relies specifically on government legal protection. And when I say legal protection, for example, where the pharmaceutical companies would say, well, look, you have to pass legislation, so we're off the hook for any legal accountability for any of the fallout from any vaccines we may manufacture. And the government says, yeah, okay. So effectively that becomes not only a government procurement in this case, but also the government's protecting the company from any sort of liability. The same can be said in areas of monopoly and oligopoly and cartel pricing. Increasingly, the government is moving to protect the most pro-globalist of these organisations, protect them from competition and so on. So the mix, in terms of a total proportion of the economy, a much greater part of the economy is now either government contract-based or government protected monopolies and oligopolies, monopolies, and so on. So that's that. So the very structure of our economies has changed. But coming back to, so there's less competition, in other words. Now, because there's less competition, you need different people. If the customers are being delivered up to you and they kind of have to buy your shit, then you don't need to have the best. You don't need to be the best. You don't need to give the best service or give better service than the guy down the road. You don't need any of those things. And then that's reflected in the sort of people you hire. So that when the government comes around or the activists come around and say, well, you got to hire more black lesbians, you look at it and go, well, hey, we don't really need good people. We don't really need effective people because we don't have to compete to make the money and deliver profits. So what we'll do is, sure, we'll hire these people. We'll give them a checklist to tick a box checklist type thing, and then there you go, where everything is solved. So, but this is going back 15 years or so, and this was an American multinational firm, and I knew the people throughout the Asia Pacific region, and I was with a firm where there'd been a boardroom coup, and some guys had taken over, guys that were backed by one of the big financial firms, and they'd sort of taken over the board of directors, and they moved very quickly to get rid of everyone in key positions and replace them with their own flunky boys. And I was one of the ones that they went to move out. It was a night of the long knives, that one. Anyway, I only just got home that day, and I was on a good income, and I'm not a spendthrift sort of guy. I'm quite cautious with money, and so it wasn't like I was down on my last nickel in the bank account or something. So I was quite relaxed about it, quite confident I'd find something else fairly quickly, and I was reasonably well known, in that sector of the industry. So I was again reasonably confident if I started making some calls the next day, I'd be able to arrange some meetings. Anyway, I'd only just got home, and the fucking phone rang, and it was an outfit that we did business with, and they'd heard about what had gone on, and so they one of the head guys there called and said, "Look, hey Billy Bob, would you consider coming working for us?" And well, sure, but being a practical dude, what's the job? What are you expecting? What does it pay? And these are practical considerations, especially if you've got like dependent family and the mortgage and the car payments, the school fees, the standard sort of stuff. So I they said, or the guy said, "Look, call so and so," and it was a woman. "Call so and so tomorrow. I'll call her to make sure she'll drop whatever she's doing to give you as much time as you think you need." So they were clearly very interested, very polite, quite keen, and given how swiftly they moved to get to me as well. So I thought, all right, well, I'll make the call. Now, a couple of things in kind of backstory. That the company had decided to go all equity and not so much quote, because that term wasn't around then, but the outcome equity, and they coming from the American head office, they decided they had to put a lot of women in key positions and hire a lot of minorities and that sort of stuff. Now, just a few years previous, they were just 100% white. There was not a brown or black face in sight, and I'd noticed that there was an increase in minorities coming in, but then suddenly it happened quite swiftly. They looked at all the sort of women they had, and they promoted them sort of 3 rungs above whatever position they were, and this sort of created, I thought, a lot of distortions in the business. Now, it turns out the lady that they wanted me to call, I'd done some business with her before. We'd worked on a big project where she'd been one of the team for them, and I'd been heading up the team on our side. And so I knew her quite well, and she was, I don't know, a few years older than me, I suppose. But I thought she was reasonably sophisticated and sensible. I quite liked her. We got on well, but I was very much the senior man in the interaction, and she showed the sort of respect. Respect's probably the wrong word, but the respect for the knowledge and my accomplishments and my status and this sort of thing. Not with any groveling or far from it, but she's mindful that she knew a lot less than I did, and therefore would sort of quite tactfully seek my opinion or put forward her opinions and ask what I thought, that sort of thing, which would imply her skill at getting on with people. So that shouldn't be sold short at all. But she was the one. They'd elevated her to like quite like a VP level role, almost a senior VP level role, really, and that was again involved, I think, 3 or 4 rungs up the ladder, and I don't think it was, she was suitable for that. The only thing that she had that could have made that work was, again, her ability to get on with people and not offend people, and she was certainly good at that. But aside from that, she didn't have the technical skill or the credentials to be doing that job, in my view. Nonetheless, they're offering me a job. I'm out of a job, so I'll go along. So I called, and again, she said, "Hey, look, come over when you're ready. I'm in all day. When you arrive, let me know. I'll stop whatever I'm doing which is what her boss had said she would do. So I arrived, and again, we sort of went back over some of the old times, and I quite liked her, and we got on well. I didn't like that she flirted with me at the what was in effect an interview, really. I saw an interview of sorts, I suppose, but she made it plain, look, the job's yours if you want it. All you have to do is say yes, and it's yours. That was, and I've been told to say that by her boss. So the job's yours. If you think you'll be sort of happy here and all that, that sort of stuff, the job's yours and you can start on Monday. So I thought, okay. Well, it's being delivered on a plate. I kind of don't have to do anything. I don't have to climb over cut glass or hot coals. And there's a lot of attraction in that, because some companies, whether they want you or they're super keen on you, they do make you jump through a lot of hoops. And it was the beginning of those days when you had to grovel to the black lesbian to get the job. Those days were just starting back then. So she then said, well, look, do you want to meet what will be your colleagues and some people that'll be sort of around you in the if you do take the job. So I met some of the people who I'd be either working with and or working alongside. It was more being in charge of customers as in more than being responsible for people. I think I'd phrase it that way in this role at least. And so I met the people who would be my colleagues and so on that would report to others, but I would have to interact with to get my job done. And I'm glad she suggested that. And I wonder if she had an ulterior motive in mind, but took me around to introduce me to some of these people. I mean, seriously, I don't think I would have employed any of them. Like if I'd been the one making the employment decision or the hiring decision, I wouldn't have employed any of these people. The amount of the affirmative action box ticking had really kicked off over the previous few months. So there were brown people and brown women and people who had no relevant qualifications at all. Now, with some of these bigger companies, they tend to talk in terms of pedigree rather than accomplishment and qualifications. These people had no pedigree and they had no accomplishment and had no qualifications. They had nothing. They shouldn't have been there. But the box ticking had delivered that. Then some of the other, the general manager of product and this sort of thing. Again, they'd gone full affirmative action on this, and so I was aghast. And now here's sort of really the rub, and this is what I wanted to get to in this video was I consider myself at the time a bit of a heavy hitter in that space, in that category. Not the heaviest hitter and not the heaviest hitter in brain surgery or something, but in that business technology space, I thought I was a real player. And the mere fact I was getting a phone call, within an hour and a half of me exiting the other place would imply that others might have thought as much as well. But anyway, so I had this thing of, well, I consider myself as for example, just trying to put a numerics on it, I consider myself as an 8.5 out of 10. Now, but the people I've just met that I've been introduced to in this job that I'm being offered, I would consider them, a 2 or a 3 out of 10. People who are on the same level as me in seniority in the company, I would consider them maybe a 4 out of 10, 5 out of 10 at a stretch. Some of them seemed very nice and pleasant people, and they had nice smiles and all this sort of thing. Great dentition and the like, but they weren't. I didn't believe in my category in any way. So now the person I'd report to, who I did get on with well, and I didn't like the way she flirted at the interview, and I thought that was unprofessional. But I could get on well with her, or had previously got on well with her. I don't know how well it would have gone if we were in close proximity, but nonetheless. So, but and I considered her again maybe a 5 out of 10, a 4 or 5 out of 10 at best. So I'm being surrounded by people, colleagues, peers, my boss. Now it was my boss's boss before I considered somebody to be sort of a 9 out of 10, higher, heavier hitter than me. And because of that, I felt sort of, why should I work alongside? I want to work alongside bright, capable people. I want to work alongside people with credentials, people who've achieved things, built things, created things, done things, and who want to create more and do more. Those are the people I want to work alongside. And here I'll be working alongside, assuming I accept the job, working alongside a bunch of limp-wristed, Nancy boys and affirmative action flunkies, and two-bit this and can't even speak English and that. Well, why do I want to do that? Now, at that stage, you think to yourself, well, the only other solution is I start my own business. If you don't like it, start your own business. Now, the money they were paying was, in today's money, it was about $350,000+ a year, which is about that income level that I was at. So the money wasn't a problem, and they even sort of suggested or implied they could sweeten that a little bit if I wanted some more. And she even said that if any like on that basis, I'd be getting paid more than her, which she seemed to accept, by the way. So even she sort of seemed to accept that, you're a heavyweight, heavy hitter sort of dude, and you do deserve more. And even though I'm in this job, I'm realistic enough to accept I'm an affirmative action hire. So my job is to, get on with you as best I can. So I did appreciate and admire her, by the way, for that sort of very realistic view of the world. But anyway, a couple of things. So I didn't like the idea of working with people that I thought weren't anywhere near as good as me. Now, I don't know, is that excessive pride or vanity? It was factual. These people hadn't achieved anything near what I'd achieved. Even people the same age as me, they'd been like corporate hacks or goons. They hadn't done anything. So it was a realistic appraisal. But was it realistic in the context of the changing society around me and around us, straight white males generally, or high achieving? Was it realistic in that sense? Was the world shifting under my feet? This is obviously 15 to 17 years hindsight here. Was the world shifting under my feet, and should I have accepted that the new status of high achieving straight white men is to be two-bit, on your knees, groveling flunkies to the new social order? Is it that, or do you still have sufficient agency to say, no, I'm better than that, and I can get a better gig, or can do work that I'll be more satisfied, I will find more satisfying, and I've still got things to achieve. Because to take that job, I'd have needed to accept, well, if there's nothing further I can achieve in my life, there's nothing more I can do, I'm going to go into semi-retirement and take this job. And again, the money wasn't bad. I would have been treated well, but I'd have had to be a nobody just going along with the tide. So that was the other. Now, the other thing, which is a lesser concern, but a concern nonetheless, is given the way she flirted and the way she looked at me. She recently divorced. She was, I guess, not getting laid, and she wanted to. She figured, I'm guessing here, I don't know this for sure, but figured that I may be a candidate, because we got on well, maybe a candidate to get horizontal with, and she was, as much as I liked her, I wouldn't have got horizontal with her on pain of death. There would have no chance of that happening. And if someone held a gun to my head and said, "Look, you got to do that," no, you'll have to shoot me, buddy. So that was it, and I didn't want the friction of her fantasizing about getting laid and me having to rebut her. I could have talked a good fight. I web colleagues and it's unprofessional. I could have done all that, but I'm not sure it would have washed with her. She seemed particularly keen on entertaining that possibility. So because of those things, I turned them down. Now they were. I don't think she was that surprised, but her boss was surprised, and he called me up and said, "Look, you come and meet me for a cup of coffee, and he so we met, and he made a quite a decent, earnest effort to talk me into taking the job, and he even tried to dangle a few carrots. So look, do that for a couple of years, and then I'll have something else for you that'll be more challenging, and will require more of your brain power to be used, this sort of thing. So and so they were making an effort, but I was looking at sort of some other people that had gone there. That there's a guy who'd gone to work for a few years ago who I did think was pretty good. So I spoke to him, and he said they dangled that carrot in front of him, but they've left him to sort of rot in the corner, and not on bad money or anything, but he's bored out of his skull, and he said the only thing left for him to do is engage in petty, childish little politics, because that's the only thing left to occupy his mind. He can't achieve anything, so he just acts like the child that they kind of want him to. So anyway, considering all that, I turned them down. But with hindsight, is it? I look at that, not with regret, far from it, but I look at that and say, well, what was the world changing at that time? And I just didn't see it in stark, in proper stark relief. And should I have taken that job and accepted the reality that the people around me are going to be affirmative action, they are going to be quota highs, they are going to be, and I'm the only high achieving straight white male there, or one of the very few. And the new order, the new future is that there is no place for high achieving straight white males to go. Is that the reality today? And given that it actually was beginning and moving along back then, should someone like me or people in my position, should I just have accepted that status quo? Or is the future of the Western world going to depend on straight white males saying, well, no, there are more things to achieve, there are more things to build and create, and I'm going to go and fucking do it. I look forward to seeing your comments below. You've been with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.